Part 27. Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss. Author, Junanan. Chapter 261. To be honest, he didn't know how strong Nan Yan was. But judging from the past, her skills in controlling computers should be better than his. Zhang Qiaoyang actually wanted to have a PK with Nan Yan. Come and find out what she is really capable of. Old member. You don't even know what the foreign aide you hired is capable of. Anyway, she's pretty strong. Zhang Qianqian gritted his teeth. Just watch, she won't disappoint. How could such an arrogant and proud person allow himself to fail? She promised to help and would do her best. The old members had nothing to do, and they couldn't help. They could only hope that Nan Yan would become more powerful. How strong are the three newcomers in their institute? They understand that there is really no chance of winning against the CSA of Country M. If you can't win, I hope you won't lose too badly. At the same time, Country M, CSA Computing Institute. The people of China are just a bunch of rubbish. They thought nothing could happen to them. Look at the way they were beaten by us. They look like a bunch of clowns. Don't say that. China is still very capable. Don't be arrogant. That's what I said, but the people sitting across from us are obviously not included. Try to control it, take cover, and don't end the battle too quickly. The director and several senior members are secretly invading their main computer. Don't ruin their plan. No. They didn't know that the words of their conversation were being emitted from the computer controlled by Nan Yan. The expressions of Zhang Leading and several old members changed. Let me tell you why those people from CSA proposed a competition to us. It turns out they have another purpose. Inform the director immediately, we can't let them succeed. The people of Country M are really cunning, despicable, and shameless. They can even think of such a method. How shameless! As they spoke, several people had already sat down in front of the computers across from them and quickly turned them on. Zhang Qianqiang quickly took out his mobile phone and called Zhang Qianqiang to inform him. After the old members' computers were turned on, Nan Yan said calmly, "Do you need to delay?" "What?" Nan Yan frowned slightly and repeated impatiently, "Delay time and do what they want to do." Really poor understanding. Depending on what the director wants, we probably won't be able to hack into their computers. The other party has a higher level than us. Moreover, among the senior members of our institute, only senior brother Zhang is here today. Nan Yan said oh and made a decision in her heart. She typed the keyboard faster. But she was not in a hurry to hack into the other party's computer. Instead, they are strengthening the firewall level of anti-computing office. The reason why she would control the CSA side in advance and intercept their conversation. It's because she has dealt with them a long time ago. Knowing that their style is despicable, they would not simply want the two new members of the institute to compete. If a notorious robber is encountered by her, she will naturally want to teach him a lesson. Tan Lin was alerted and rushed to the computer room with a sullen face. As he walked, he cursed angrily. That bastard Orbis is so evil. Shameless, wait until next time I meet him, see if I don't pull off his beard. Asshole, how dare you plot against me? Tan Lin was so angry that he pushed away the member closest to him, took over his computer, and started typing on the keyboard. The energy he exerted on typing the keyboard probably vented all his hatred for Orbis on the keyboard. Nan Yan raised her eyes and met Tan Lin's eyes. Tan Lin changed his face as if he was angry before, and asked with a smile, "That student Nan Yan, are you interested in helping me?" "How can I help?" Nan Yan's voice was as light as water. Tan Lin rubbed his hands and said, "Help me take care of Orbis lair together." Several old members, isn't the director going crazy with anger? Okay. Nan Yan responded quietly, "It just so happens that I haven't liked him for a long time." Tan Lin's eyes lit up, "Okay, Let's join forces and give them some color. His intuition was indeed correct. This girl is a genius among computer geniuses. He secretly decided in his heart that he must abduct Nan Yan into Enta. Such a talent must not be allowed to be pried away by others. Everyone. What are they talking about? Why, they don't quite understand. Even Zhang Lian was a little shocked. The development of this matter is completely beyond imagination and control. Classmate Nan Yan is amazing, but does the teacher blindly trust her too much? However, they soon saw whether Nan Yan had such strength. She kicked the chair, slid to the side, and opened the other computer on her right. While waiting for the computer to start up, she adjusted the position of the computer desk. Let the computer desk on the right be at a right angle of 90 degrees to the computer desk she used before. After the computer desk was adjusted, the second computer was turned on. Immediately afterwards, Nan Yan controlled two computers by himself, typing quickly on their respective keyboards with both hands. A pair of hands, so fast that the hands turned into after images. This move shocked everyone in the computer room. Can a computer still play like this? The left and right hands are controlling a computer respectively, and the projects being carried out are completely different. How fast must the brain work? Is this the level that humans can achieve? Shocked is not enough to describe their mood at this moment. But now is not the time to be distracted. Focus on your work and don't take it lightly. Hashtag. 10 minutes later, a violent roar suddenly came from the CSA Computing Institute of Country M. Then, several computers in the director's office were all emitting black smoke because they were splashed with water. The water was poured by Orbis. In order to prevent the internal information of the Computing Institute from being stolen, he could only grit his teeth and destroy several computers. He would rather burn the motherboard than let the contents inside leak out. Tan Lin. Looking at the computer emitting black smoke, Orbis's face was extremely ugly. He gritted his teeth and clenched his fists. He underestimated Tan Lin. Unexpectedly, his careful actions were discovered by him, and he was defeated by him. If he hadn't acted quickly enough, I'm afraid that the shameful things on his host would have been copied by Tan Lin. Director, what should we do now? Several senior members of CSA looked at him helplessly. Orbis thought for a while and said gloomily, suppress this matter first and don't tell anyone. He always felt that something was wrong with this matter. He and Tan Lin had fought more than once or twice. He had a say in whether he had the ability or not. And he felt that the other party's method of invading his computer this time was somewhat familiar. Was it his illusion? Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss. Author, Junanan. Chapter 262. Enta Computing Institute. Everyone looked at Nan Yan in shock. On her computer were confidential files that Orbis thought could not be stolen if the motherboard was burned out. Even Tan Lin couldn't succeed, but she did it. And the inhuman means of controlling two computers at the same time were enough to stun them. Nan Yan put his hands on the keyboard, raised his head and said to Tan Lin, CSA is notorious in the circle. It often steals other companies' confidential documents and then blackmails them. Director, see if these are useful. If it's useless, just delete it. Tan Lin looked at Nan Yan and was already rubbing his hands excitedly. It is unjustifiable for such a good young man and such a powerful talent not to stay in his computing institute. He did not respond to her words, but asked with a friendly smile, Nan Yan, can I call you Yan Yan? Nan Yan looked at him and responded after a while, okay. Look, you are so capable. It's a bit humiliating to participate in the computer competition organized by the school. How about you come to my computing laboratory and participate in international competitions? Not only are you rich in bonuses, but you can also increase your reputation in the circle and truly unleash your abilities. Nan Yan could see the anticipation in Tan Lin's eyes, but she still shook her head lightly, sorry, I have never thought of joining any computing institute. Think about it. In fact, we have a lot of freedom here. We don't need to work or clock in. We get a lot of money, and the equipment is professional. We don't restrict members from using the equipment in the institute to do personal things. You can continue to attend school and continue to do what you like, as long as you come here once in a while and help out. Everyone. What did they hear? Why is this completely different from the requirements when they entered the institution? Oh. This is the difference between big bosses and ordinary members. It's them who don't deserve it. Then, several old members looked at Zhang Lianqian with pity. Zhang leads the way. Why are you looking at him like this? Could it be that they thought that if Nan Yan entered the institute, his status would be in jeopardy? Because he is Tan Lin's apprentice, to a certain extent, everyone believes that the next director of the Enta Computing Institute must be Zhang Qiaoyang. But now if someone who is better than him in all aspects, stronger and younger comes, then the number of successors will not be certain. Zhang Qiaoyang reacted and just wanted to give them a few blank looks. They really have a lot on their minds. Enta, a small temple, cannot keep Nanyan. If she intends to enter a computing institute, she will definitely be the one to enter the imperial capital. Moreover, this is not the only path she can take. Here, if she agrees, it can at best be a springboard. After Tan Lin finished speaking, he waited nervously for her answer. Nan Yan thought about what he said. It seems that if you come here to work part-time, it won't be a waste. Working for Bayuki is also of the same nature. I just need to take some time to take on a few tasks occasionally. Okay, she agreed, but I don't have that much time to come over, so I'll let you know in advance. Tan Lin quickly laughed and said, it's okay, as long as you are willing to come. The matter of entering Enta is decided like this. Naturally, their side won the competition with CSA. After Tan Lin walked back to his office in a happy mood, Nan Yan raised her eyebrows and looked at the people who had teased her before. Now, is it our turn? Old member. If they felt that Nanyan was overestimating his capabilities before. Now, they clearly know that they are still overestimating their capabilities when competing against her. Well, can we not compete? If you do it, you will definitely be crushed. Thinking of Nan Yan's terrifying strength, they might be crushed completely. Whoever has nothing to do will find abuse on his own. Nan Yan curled her lips and smiled evilly, no. Several people, Zhang Qianqiang gloated, I advise you not to run away. See how much the director values Nanyan, and don't ask for trouble. Several people, oh. They had no choice but to fight Nanyan one-on-one. Then I was so abused that I didn't know what to do, and I almost fell into depression. After beating each person for 3 games, Nanyan took his mobile phone and was sent out of the computing center by Zhang. Classmate Nanyan, do you want to go to school? I'll see you off. Nanyan shook her head, no need, someone will pick me up. She called the driver of her old home in advance. Sure enough, after standing outside for a minute or two, the familiar car gradually approached. However, it was not Lazai's car, but Qin Lu's car. Nanyan raised her eyebrows. She didn't even call him, how did he know she was here? Qin Lu was very busy, so she didn't want to disturb him unless necessary. In the end, he still came. Teacher Zhang, the person to pick me up is here, you go in first. Oh, okay, classmate Nanyan, thank you very much this time. If you need help with anything in the future, you can tell me. You are welcome. Zhang took the lead and watched Nanyan walk towards the Rolls-Royce before turning back. Nanyan opened the car door and got in directly. After sitting down, she buckled her seat belt, turned her head and asked, aren't you very busy? Qin Lu held the steering wheel with one hand and looked at her leisurely, is there any conflict between being busy and picking you up? Nanyan. Is he saying that work is not as important as her? Where to go? Nan Yan blinked. You came to pick me up and don't know where I'm going. Qin Lu said calmly, well, I just know you are here. It's true that she didn't tell Uncle Tian where she was going. She leaned back on the seat and found a more comfortable position. Take me to the number 1 hospital. Hashtag. The first hospital. Nanyan unbuckled his seat belt and got out of the car. Seeing that Qin Lu didn't intend to leave, but followed him down together, he couldn't help but ask, you don't have to work today. Qin Lu walked to her side and put his big hand on her head naturally, I do my work during working hours. Now I have to spend time with my children. He was very restrained and wanted to change his habit of touching her head when nothing happened. However, doesn't seem to work very well. Every time he saw her, he subconsciously wanted to rub her head twice. Especially seeing her furious and speechless look, I felt an inexplicable sense of accomplishment. The child's expression is too cold. It's not easy to see her change her face. Nan Yan raised her eyes, looked at him speechlessly, and then pulled his hand down expressionlessly. He muttered, don't mess up my hair. No. Qin Lu smiled lowly, and then naturally held her hand, is there a new patient? Nan Yan lowered her head and glanced at the hands held by the two of them, then looked away. Just hold it? Anyway, it's not once or twice. It's probably because she got used to it, being taken care of by him in various ways, and she is slowly accepting his existence. In 2 days, I may have to go out. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss. Author, Junanan. Chapter 263. After entering the elevator, Nan Yan looked at him and said thoughtfully, I may go out in 2 days. The other party agreed to trade with her face to face. The address will definitely not be set in Jincheng. She will go there in person to get it. Where to go? Not sure yet. After saying that, Nan Yan was a little annoyed. It seems that there is no need to tell Qin Lu about this matter, right? She must have had a brain seizure just now, so she mentioned it to him on purpose. Do you want your brother to accompany you? No, Nan Yan licked her lips and turned her face away, just to tell you. Qin Lu's eyes showed a pleasant smile. The little girl is embarrassed? Okay, when the time comes, tell your brother when the place is set. Since she has already spoken, he naturally can't let her go alone. He is also worried. Nan Yan sighed secretly and didn't explain any more. It is estimated that the more she explains, the more counterproductive it will be. After saying 2 sentences, the elevator arrived. Nan Yan pretended to be calm, pulled her hand out, and walked out of the elevator first. Qin Lu followed behind her, watching her put her hands in her pockets, and the smile in his eyes deepened. What an awkward and cute child. Nan Yan went to the dean's office first and changed into a white coat. Mr. Tao was not in there today, and there was no one else in the office. Brother, wait for me here for a while. Nan Yan felt that Qin Lu should not be interested in going with her to see patients. As a result, just after asking, she heard Qin Lu asked with a smile, can you go with me? Nan Yan was silent for a moment, then you need to change clothes? Okay. She found a clean white coat in Mr. Tao's office and handed it to him. The man took off his expensive suit jacket in front of her. His movements were not hurried or slow, but his eyes were still on Nan Yan's face. It was like he was seducing her. Nan Yan suddenly felt dry in the mouth. Qin Lu had a good figure, a standard model figure, thin when dressed, and muscular when undressed. Under the suit, he wore a white silk shirt. As he moved, the tight fabric could clearly show his muscle lines. He was wearing clothes, but he was more imaginative than when he was not wearing clothes. After all, when Nan Yan closed her eyes, what automatically came to her mind was his 8 distinct abdominal muscles. Is changing clothes so difficult? Nan Yan tried her best to resist the urge to pounce on him and strip him naked, but her jade-like face was already stained with a faint blush. Yan Yan. Qin Lu suddenly called her in a low voice. Nan Yan came back to her senses and quickly shifted her sight from him to his face. However, that face was clearly more seductive. Help me get some clothes. His suit jacket was off and was being held in his hand. Nan Yan went over and reached out to take his clothes. Before she got the clothes, he grabbed her hand and pressed it on his abdominal muscles. Nan Yan. His body temperature, through a thin layer of clothing, was transmitted to her fingertips, and she curled her palms slightly. He asked angrily, "What are you doing?" Qin Lu chuckled in a low voice, "You were so absorbed in watching just now, I thought you wanted to touch my abdominal muscles." He lowered his head and said in a bewitching voice, "It's not easy to touch through the clothes, you can also try to reach in." Nan Yan's face flushed all over. Angry and annoyed? How could he flirt with her so unscrupulously? At that moment, Nan Yan's anger was added, and he was bewitching in her ear. She made up her mind, pulled out the man's shirt hidden in his pants, reached in, and pressed on his abdominal muscles. Then, the two of them were stunned at the same time. Qin Lu's body suddenly tensed up, and his dark eyes, almost instantly, set off a dark fire. Nan Yan calmed down a little bit. She raised her eyes, eyebrows slightly raised, fingertips slid across his abdomen, delicate and beautiful face, a naughty smile. Brother's abdominal muscles are really good to touch. Yan Yan. This time it was Qin Lu's turn to hold her hand, not allowing her to move. His black eyes, which did not hide the surging aggressive intention, looked at her helplessly. "Brother, please beg for mercy, okay? Brother is wrong." He wanted to tease the little girl. Unexpectedly, the little girl suddenly became bolder, and he was restrained instead. Although he didn't mind making trouble with the little girl, this was someone else's office. It's not good to be caught by others. Creaking. The two heard the door open and turned back at the same time. Tao Qingming didn't expect to see such a scene as soon as he entered the door, and hurriedly retreated. "You continue, I didn't see anything." After retreating, he also closed the door. "After all, she is a youngster, look, how enthusiastic." Tao Lao sighed. Then he reacted, "Is Nan Yan still young?" Then I thought, that's not right, she's already 18 years old, she's a grown woman. So it's okay, it's normal for young couples to flirt with each other. In the office, when Tao Qingming opened the door and came in, Nan Yan had already quickly pulled her hand out and stuffed his clothes back in. "Hurry up and change your clothes." Nan Yan snatched Qin Lu's coat, then threw the white coat to him and turned to walk out. She took a deep breath, calmed her heartbeat and emotions, and then opened the door. "Mr. Tao." Mr. Tao said with a smile, "Why did you come out so soon?" "It's okay, I'm not in a hurry. The office can be lent to you two young lovers to cultivate feelings." Nan Yan said lightly, "No, I just helped him tidy up his clothes." Tao Qingming smiled and nodded kindly, "Oh, it's just tidying up clothes, I think too much." Nan Yan. Why did she feel that Mr. Tao didn't believe what she said at all? Forget it, if you are seen, you will be seen. Explain too much, it's just covering up. Not long after, Qin Lu changed into a white coat and came out. Nan Yan rolled her eyes at him coldly, called Mr. Tao, ignored him, and walked towards the ward. Qin Lu laughed helplessly. The little guy is angry, it seems that he will have something to coax when he comes down. First, go to see Professor Yun. After injecting the T-1 reagent, Professor Yun's condition has improved a lot, and he is conscious today. Nan Yan felt her pulse and asked her some questions. After she knew what was going on, she went to see Fu Yubai. In the ward, Fu Linfen was standing by the window and making a phone call. Fu Yubai leaned on the bed, his eyebrows were gentle and his expression was calm. It seemed that he was not seriously ill in the hospital, but was on vacation. The white and blue striped hospital gown also gave him a sense of warmth. Hearing the door open, he looked towards the door. "Dr. Nan, you are here." He curled his lips and greeted her with a smile. Then, he nodded to Tao Qingming, "Old Tao." Nan Yan walked straight to the bedside. "How do you feel today?" "It's okay, I can hold on." "Stretch out your hand, I'll take your pulse." Fu Yubai was very obedient and stretched out his hand. "Dr. Nan, your focused look is very similar to an acquaintance of mine. Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss." Author, Junanan. Chapter 264. "Dr. Nan, you look very focused, very similar to an acquaintance of mine." Fu Yubai slightly side-eyed, watching Nan Yan's serious pulse-taking, and said gently, "Really?" Nan Yan's tone was still cold, and there was no change in her expression on her face. "I guess doctors are in a similar state when they are focused." She didn't want to recognize him now, at least, wait until she was sure that she was safe. Now, she didn't know how to tell him. Fu Yubai smiled gently and didn't say anything else. It seemed that the sentence just now was just a casual mention. Qin Lu stood not far away from Nan Yan, his eyes always on her. He also heard the conversation between the two. Based on his understanding of Nan Yan, this man should have some relationship with her. "Continue to take the medicine, you are not suitable for stimulation in the short term." So, even if the fire flint and blood Ganoderma were brought back, they couldn't help him treat it. Fu Yubai slowly withdrew his hands, folded his sleeves, and crossed them on his abdomen. His whole body was full of elegance and gentleness. His clear eyes always had a gentle smile. No matter who he faced, he was always so gentle and polite. Nan Yan stood up, thought for a moment, and asked, "Why has your health been delayed until now?" With the ability of the Fu family, if they had found a famous doctor to treat Fu Yubai when he first discovered his illness, it would not be too troublesome and he could have been cured easily. He had delayed for too long, and had been dragging his body down, causing his illness to be incurable. If she hadn't happened to see Fu Linfen's post asking for medicine on the Dark Domain network, he would probably have died if he had delayed for a few more days. Nan Yan was really glad that she met Fu Linfen, otherwise she would have felt guilty to death when she knew that her third senior brother was sick and died later. Fu Yubai sighed helplessly, "It was discovered too late, and I didn't take it seriously at the time, so it became like this now." "That's not the case at all." Fu Linfen, who was making a phone call at the window, hung up the phone after Nan Yan came and listened to the conversation here. When he heard Fu Yubai say this, he rushed over immediately. "Brother, your illness is obviously forced by the elders in the family," he said angrily. "If they can think about you a little bit, you won't be like this now." "Xiao Feng." Fu Yubai's tone was not very heavy, but it was stern. Fu Linfen gritted his teeth, closed his mouth, and stood aside. Fu Yubai apologized, "I'm sorry, Xiao Feng is still young and ignorant." Fu Linfen. "He is still young? Is he younger than this little genius doctor? He is already 22 years old. That's obviously the case. If it weren't for the elders in the family who put all the pressure on the eldest brother, how could the eldest brother be so seriously ill?" He didn't understand. How could a ruthless and indifferent family be worth his eldest brother's risking his life to take care of it? But he only dared to think about these things in his heart. If his eldest brother didn't want to hear it, he couldn't say it. Now that his eldest brother was like this, he didn't want to make him angry at all. "Will they come to disturb you during your treatment?" Nan Yan was calm on the surface, but there was a bit more fierceness in her eyes. However, she concealed it perfectly and didn't let Fu Yubai find out. No, I don't care about family affairs now. So, this can be understood as the elders dismissing his power after he was terminally ill and thought he had no chance of getting better? Nan Yan sneered in her heart. Very good. Is this how her people are bullied? But the matter of looking for the Fu family should be put aside for the time being. The health of the third senior brother is more important than anything else. I'm glad I won't bother you, Mr. Fu. I hope that while I'm treating you, you only need to take care of your health and don't worry about anything else. You know that your body can't stand any tossing. Can you listen to the doctor's advice? Fu Yubai looked at Nan Yan's slightly immature face. In a trance, he seemed to see the little sister in front of him, with her hands on her waist, fiercely ordering him not to do this, not to do that. If it weren't for the age and appearance, he really would think she was his little sister. Okay. He came back to his senses and smiled slowly. Qin Lu looked at Fu Yubai and Nan Yan thoughtfully, with a touch of ink in his eyes. The child seemed to care too much about this patient. You have a good rest. If you have anything, you can find Mr. Tao. After leaving a reminder, Nan Yan left the ward. The time she stayed here was more than 10 minutes longer than that of Professor Yun. After chatting with Tao Qingming for a few more words, Nan Yan and Qin Lu walked out of the hospital. Little friend. Nan Yan looked up and looked at him. Qin Lu hooked her hand and asked casually, are you the acquaintance he mentioned? Nan Yan. His sense, should it be so sharp? She didn't want to lie to Qin Lu about these things. Then why don't you want to recognize him? Nan Yan was silent for a moment, then said lightly, it's not the time yet. Wait until his body gets better, then we can talk. He can't stand the slightest stimulation now. If he knew that she was killed by someone and reborn in her current body, it would definitely stimulate him. Qin Lu heard her answer and gently squeezed her palm. After a few minutes of silence, Nan Yan looked at him sideways. Brother, don't you have anything to ask me? The man's face, in the sun, was like a layer of gold, perfect like a work of art. It was beyond reach, but people would be attracted to him involuntarily. Nan Yan thought that she would sink little by little, and his face was definitely a great contribution. She liked beautiful things, so naturally she had no resistance to beautiful people. Brother wants to wait for the day when you are willing to tell me. Although I think that day is a bit far away, brother can still wait. His voice was low and magnetic, with a little smile. After a pause, he used a playful tone to express his resentment, didn't you ask about my affairs? Brother, I'm hungry. Nan Yan changed the subject very abruptly. It's a bit dangerous to continue this topic. It's better not to continue talking about it. What do you want to eat? Whatever, I'm not picky. Qin Lu pinched her smooth cheeks and chuckled, well, my kid is easy to feed. Then, he took Nan Yan to the car and went to a private restaurant. Nan Yan is not picky about food. As long as it is delicious, any cuisine is fine. She is very easygoing. As long as she can eat and wear warm clothes, she doesn't have high material requirements. But Qin Lu wants to give her the best of everything. The private restaurant he took her to is also the top restaurant in Jincheng. The meals to be cooked every day are fixed and have been booked early. As for Qin Lu's desire to have a meal here, it was just a matter of words. When the two of them entered the restaurant, they saw an acquaintance. Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss. Author, Junanan. Chapter 265. Shen Junking's enchanting face is definitely a signboard. It's so dazzling that it's hard not to see it. Yan Yan, are you here to eat too? Shen Junking left the people he was traveling with and went directly to Nan Yan, let's go together. As for Qin Lu, who was standing next to Nan Yan, he was automatically ignored by him. Nan Yan glanced at those young men and raised her eyebrows and said, "Third brother, aren't you here with your friends? Let them eat by themselves. We haven't eaten together for a long time. Do you have the heart to refuse, third brother?" Nan Yan. To be honest, she couldn't say no in front of Shen Junking's enchanting face. She pulled Qin Lu's hand and said to the side, "Brother, add someone." "Okay." Qin Lu's voice was dull and his emotions could not be heard. However, these two people have always disliked each other when they are together, and he will definitely not be happy. During this period, the three of them really didn't get along much. I hope these two will not be so childish. However, it turned out that Nan Yan thought too much. During the whole meal, the two of them never stopped arguing. Nan Yan could only lower her head to eat, pretending not to hear. After the meal, Shen Junking put his hand on Nan Yan's shoulder and said bluntly, "Is Mr. Qin very busy? I'll take Yan Yan home, you can go back." Qin Lu stared at his hand sharply, then pushed his hand away and took Nan Yan to his side. He said lightly, "Don't bother Mr. Shen, I'll go wherever Yan Yan wants to go." Shen Junking naturally crossed his arms and smiled lazily, "That's perfect, I didn't drive here, Mr. Qin can take me home." "Qin Lu, your friend is outside." Shen Junking simply hooked his shoulder, "Don't be so stingy, what kind of friendship do we have? How can those bad friends outside compare to it?" Qin Lu shook his shoulder and shook his hand away, "We two, there is no friendship." Nan Yan took a step back with a headache, "You guys can quarrel, I'll go by myself. It's really getting more and more childish. If I tell someone, who would believe it?" Seeing that Nan Yan was about to leave, Qin Lu glanced at Shen Junking coldly, sneered, and turned to follow him. Shen Junking has always been thick-skinned. Especially when he can get along with Yan Yan and cause trouble for Qin Lu, this bastard, he is even thicker-skinned. The three of them finally got into a car. Nan Yan asked Qin Lu to take her to school and attended classes in the second half of the day. Hashtag. In the evening. After school, it was Qin Ye who came to pick her up today. Qin Ye opened the car door for Nan Yan, and after she got in, he said, "Miss, Mr. and Mrs. are at the old house." Nan Yan's face was cold, "What are they doing again?" "For the real estate and shares under the name of the old man. Last time, Mr. N had transferred all his shares to Nan Yan. Nan Yan transferred them to Anziran. But Anyaoking and Lulahua were not willing to give up. Moreover, Nan Yan did not let Anziran tell them that she had transferred the shares to him. Now they both thought that the shares were still in her hands. "Didn't I tell them not to bother Grandpa again?" Qin Ye was helpless. This time, it was Madam's father who came along. "It's not good to stop Mr. Lu from the door." Lulahua did everything he could for the shares. Nan Yan's nominal grandfather was a contemporary master who was obsessed with art and had long since stopped caring about worldly affairs. I don't know what reason Lulahua used to invite the old man. Nan Yan raised her hand and pinched her eyebrows. "Well, let's go back first." Hashtag. Old house. Lu Zhengting and Mr. N were playing chess face to face. Anyaoking and Lulahua sat on another sofa and kept quiet. They looked very calm. "No more, no more." After losing another game, Mr. N got angry and threw the chess pieces in anger and stopped playing with Mr. Lu. Mr. Lu stroked his beard and said disdainfully, "No wonder you've been playing chess for decades and you're still a bad chess player." Mr. N slapped the chessboard and said, "Old man Lu, who do you say is a bad chess player? I'm talking about you. You're going too far, come on." What Mr. N can't stand the most is being called a bad chess player. He doesn't have any hobbies, except playing chess. However, his chess character is not very good, and those who play chess with him will deliberately let him win, which makes him feel that his chess skills are very good. But when facing Mr. Lu, who is always serious and doesn't know how to let him win, he was immediately beaten back to his original form. Mr. Lu snorted and cooperated very well, playing another game with Mr. N. Seeing the two of them fighting on the chessboard again, Yeoking couldn't help but grab Lu Lahua's hand anxiously. Lu Lahua was also anxious. If they wait a little longer, the evil girl will be back. Seeing them here, she will probably attack them again. To be honest, they are really afraid of Nan Yan now. Lu Lahua simply stood up, walked to Lu Zhengting, and reminded him, "Dad, you have played so many games of chess, isn't it time to talk about business?" Old Master N looked up at her and snorted, "What business to talk about? Playing chess with your dad is business." Mr. Lu said, "Lahua, you go and sit aside first. If you want to talk about anything, wait until your father-in-law and I finish playing this game of chess." Lu Lahua gritted his teeth, and finally had to go back to Yeoking and sit down angrily. Finally, the round was over again. Mr. N still loses. Mr. N's face turned ugly, and he glared at Mr. Lu fiercely, "You're just bullying me, a seriously ill patient, and you won't even let me make a move." Mr. Lu said calmly, "Then don't play chess with me next time." Mr. N. Seeing that Lu Lahua was about to stand up in a hurry again, Mr. Lu took a sip of tea and said calmly, "Old man N, now it's time to talk about the shares in your name." Mr. N said with a straight face, "I will give my shares to whoever I am willing to give them to." "Mr. Lu, do you think this is true?" "That's what I say, but you can't make rash decisions just because you're biased." "Who said I was reckless? I made the decision after careful consideration." Mr. N's expression became more serious. "Old man Lu, you don't know how outstanding your granddaughter is. When you see her, you will definitely like her." Lu Zhengting actually met Nan Yan once. But at that time, Nan Yan had just returned. A timid and well-behaved girl. However, he was solely focused on finding his apprentice, so he gave her a meeting gift and paid no attention to her anymore. Now hearing Mr. N's praises, I couldn't help but ask, "How excellent is it?" "Mr. N, excellent, excellent, excellent." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss. Author, Junanan. Chapter 266. Grandpa Lu. He couldn't figure out how outstanding Nan Yan was to be praised by Grandpa N. After all, even his 4 grandchildren had never received a single compliment from the old man in Kongpeng. Lu Lahua couldn't stand it anymore and stood up to ask, "Dad, aren't you afraid that your grandchildren will be sad when you say that?" In her eyes, the best one is her eldest son. Of course, her other sons are not bad either. Even Nweo is countless times better than Nan Yan's naughty daughter. But none of them heard a word of praise from Grandpa N, and even the smiles and kindness were pitiful. Why did Nan Yan, who had only returned to the N family for 2 years, get all this so easily? To what extent was his heart biased? Or did Nan Yan use some means to make him love him so much? The resentment in Lu Lahua's heart was like a tidal wave, one layer stronger than the other. Old Master N slowly took a sip of tea from the cup, looked at her, and said lightly, "If they are half as good as Yan Yan, I will naturally praise them." Lu Lahua's voice suddenly rose, "Dad, do you mean that Hisai and the others are not even half as good as Nan Yan?" Her body was almost shaking. Angry. If it weren't for the fact that old Master N was her father-in-law and her father was here, she would probably do something inappropriate. "You raised your own child, don't you know what's going on?" Old Master N almost pointed at her nose and scolded her for having eyes. But then she thought that Yan Yan was a miracle doctor, and she didn't want them to know. Not only her medical skills, but also her other secrets, she didn't tell them anything. Such blind parents deserved that they didn't know how good Yanyan was. Old Master An had regretted more than once why he didn't take Nanyan to raise her after she came back. If so, perhaps, the conflict between them would not be so deep, and perhaps, there is still a possibility of resolving it. Dad. You are going too far. This time, even An Yeoking couldn't sit still, and wanted to challenge Grandpa An with a gloomy face. Lu Zhengting looked at the expressions of the three of them, and his expression was solemn. He came to the old house because Lu Lihua ran to him and cried, saying that Grandpa An was too partial and confused, and transferred all the shares under his name to a granddaughter who knew nothing. Not only that, but for this granddaughter, he had to cut off contact with their family and not allow them to enter the old house again. In fact, he didn't want to care about these tedious things, but he couldn't stand Lu Lihua coming to bother him all the time. Besides, he knew that Grandpa An's health was not very good, and he might not be able to hold on easily. If he was really confused and transferred the shares to a little girl who knew nothing, it would be too wrong. That's why he agreed to Lu Lihua to come here in person to ask what he was thinking. However, after seeing Mr. An, he found that Mr. An's health was much better than when he saw him before. Even his spirit was much stronger than before. After playing a few games of chess, he could clearly feel that Mr. An was not confused at all. To make him do such a thing, it seems that his granddaughter really has this ability. The atmosphere in the room was solemn. When Mr. Lu was about to speak, the sound of a car engine came from outside. Nanyan is back. Mr. An looked outside and saw that it was Qin Ye who went to pick up Nanyan's car, and a smile suddenly appeared on his face. Then he ignored An Yeoking and Lu Lihua and said to Mr. Lu, "Old man Lu, wait, your granddaughter comes in, you will know how good she is." This sentence made Mr. Lu's curiosity about Nanyan reach the highest point. Lu Lihua and An Yeoking had a little restrained expression because Nanyan came back, and sat back on the sofa embarrassedly. After all, Nanyan really did teach them a lesson, and not much time had passed, and they had not yet gotten rid of their fear of Nanyan. After Nanyan got off the car, she carried her school bag and entered the villa. 4 pairs of eyes in the living room looked at her at the same time. Grandpa An waved at her with a smile. "Yan Yan, come here, your grandpa is here to see you." Nanyan did not look at the 2 people on the sofa on the other side, but walked straight to Grandpa An. Her eyes fell on Grandpa Lu, nodded, and said lightly, "Grandpa." 2 distant and plain words. Neither friendly nor indifferent. For her, the word grandfather is just an ordinary name. After all, in the original owner's memory, there is really not much impression of grandfather. There was only such a limited meeting. However, compared with the group of people in the An family, although Grandpa Lu did not like the original owner as much as Grandpa An, he was enthusiastic, anyway, and he also gave a gift and a good face. Mr. Lu stroked his beard, responded, and looked at her. Indeed, the girl in front of him was much more dazzling than the girl he met 2 years ago. Her facial features had grown a little, and she was as delicate as a painting, delicate and beautiful, but the most outstanding thing was her cold and elegant temperament that was more beautiful than frost and snow. Judging from her appearance alone, she was indeed excellent. Nanyan did not avoid his gaze, and stood beside Grandpa An naturally, and gently pressed her hand on his shoulder. "Grandpa, are they here to irritate you again?" This "they" obviously refers to someone. Grandpa An said with a smile, "Grandpa was busy playing chess with your grandpa, and he didn't bother to pay attention to them at all. Since your grandpa is here, they dare not irritate me." Nanyan sneered lightly, "Then they know what's good for them." Grandpa Lu glared slightly. Is this girl really his granddaughter? How come Grandpa An doesn't look angry, but rather happy about the attitude of this pair of parents? And An Yeoking and Lu Lihua's faces changed with shame and anger. Lu Lihua was furious. Relying on the presence of Mr. Lu, he said sternly, "Nanyan, you've gone too far. Nan Yan raised her eyebrows coldly and looked at her sharply. There are more extreme ones. Do you want to see them? Lu Lehua met her gaze and felt a chill on his back. He hurriedly avoided her gaze and dared not look at her directly. Nan Yan said in a cold voice, if Mr. N and Mrs. are fine, don't come to the old house. If I find out that the old man is angry because of you two, you won't live such a peaceful life. Mr. Lu couldn't help but frown. Old Manon, you indulge your own granddaughter like this and treat her parents like this. I don't see where she is excellent. I only see that she is unruly and arrogant, cold and unjust. Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss. Author, Junanan. Chapter 267. The Lu family is a family of scholars, and they value loyalty, righteousness, and filial piety. In his opinion, Nan Yan's attitude towards her parents is disrespectful. How can a child treat his parents like this? And he even threatened his parents. This is simply a jerk. When Mr. N heard him pointing at Nan Yan like this, he didn't get angry. Why don't you ask your good daughter and son-in-law how they treat Yan Yan first? Besides, Yan Yan and your daughter and son-in-law have severed their relationship. Yan Yan is now just my granddaughter, not their daughter. Ridiculous, Mr. Lu slammed the table angrily. There is a blood relationship between them, how can she break it off? Even if parents are wrong, they are still parents. As children, how can we not recognize our parents or even bully them just because they are wrong? Mr. N didn't rush with him. He raised his hand and pointed at Anyeoking and Lu Lehua, snorting coldly, ask them if they have the nerve to say that they are worthy of being Yan Yan's parents. Lu Lehua and Anyeoking didn't dare to answer this question. They all lowered their heads, looked away, and didn't look at him. Grandpa, don't be angry. Nan Yan didn't care how others looked at her, including how this grandfather in front of her, who was considered to be meeting for the second time, thought of her. Hey, Grandpa is not angry, he hasn't been angry for a long time. Grandpa patted Nan Yan's hand, good child, go upstairs first, don't pay attention to old man Lu, he knows nothing, he is old-fashioned. Grandpa Lu. If it wasn't in front of the younger generation, he would have wanted to leave in anger. Yeah. Nan Yan really responded, didn't look at others, and went upstairs. This made Grandpa Lu angry again. Before he could speak, Grandpa N said, Xiao Tian, bring the tablet. Tian Yi hurried to get the tablet. After Grandpa N took it, he found the response post that Nan Yan had sent last time, which he had saved, and handed it to Grandpa Lu. Look at what your daughter and son-in-law did for yourself, and then you find fault with Yan Yan. Nan Yan asked Tian Yi to watch him at first, not wanting him to see these things. However, the internet was so chaotic, and Tian Yi was not watching him 24 hours a day, so how could he not see it? He estimated that if Nan Yan had not been regulating his body recently, he would have been pissed off to death by the two of them when he saw these things. What is this? Grandpa Lu said in confusion and started to look. Anyeoking and Lu Lehua thought about what Grandpa N was going to show Grandpa Lu, and their faces changed. They wanted to stop him, but Grandpa Lu was already watching, and they could not stop him except by snatching the tablet. However, even if they snatched the tablet, it would be useless. At the moment, the two of them panicked. Even Lu Lehua regretted that he should not have called Grandpa Lu. When Grandpa Lu finished reading the post, his face was so gloomy that he could not look at it. You two, you are really assholes. Grandpa Lu was going to be pissed off to death. How can you be called parents if you are like this? Old man Lu, are you angry already? What's in this post is only part of it. What they really did is much more than this. Old Manon deliberately asked, how can Yan Yan treat them as parents with these two people? Is it a wise choice to sever the relationship? Old man Lu. He said angrily with a cold face, you two, get out of here quickly, and don't come here to bother people in the future. Faced with the anger of the two old men, Yeoking and Lu Lihua immediately left in disgrace. Our Yanyan is a treasure, old man Lu, don't learn from those two stupid things and push Yanyan away. Build a good relationship with her, it will benefit you in the future. Old Manan reminded old man Lu very subtly to treat Nanyan well. He knew that Nanyan was a person who was like, if you treat her well, she will be twice as good to you, if you treat her badly, she will be ruthless and cold to you. He wanted Nanyan to be liked by Lu Zhengting as well. He would feel more at ease if she could have another supporter in the Lu family in the future. Mr. Lu had not recovered from his anger and did not understand the meaning of his words. He pinched his eyebrows and sighed, my daughter has let her down. Alas, I can make up for it, so I will make up for it a little. Hashtag. After going upstairs, Nanyan turned on the computer. After logging into the dark domain network, she saw the address and time sent by Running Turtle. 3 days later, M Country T City. It's a bit far, but 1 day is enough for a round trip. It happened to be Saturday that day, so there was no need to ask for leave. Fish who loves diving, okay, I'll contact you when I get there. Running Turtle, okay, let's exchange contact information first, so that we can contact each other when the time comes. Nanyan saw the other party's words and sent her own phone number. Then, the other party also sent his contact information. After refining medicine in the pharmacy for a while, it was time for dinner, and the servant came to call her down to eat. In the restaurant, Lu Lihua and Yeoking were gone, but Mr. Lu stayed. When Mr. Lu saw Nanyan coming in, his expression was a little awkward. He wanted to say hello, but Nanyan didn't even look at him. He coughed dryly, and saw Zhang Nai sitting obediently beside him, so he had something to talk about. He took the initiative to ask, Yan Yan, where did you find this little girl? Nanyan went upstairs, and after Yeoking and his wife left, Zhang Nai came back from school not long after. Then Zhang Nai was called by Grandpa and played several games with Grandpa Lu. Although Zhang Nai's chess skills were taught by Grandpa in a short period of time, he had already surpassed his master and was very strong. During the time he played chess with Grandpa Lu, with Grandpa Lu's special guidance, each game was better than the last. This made Grandpa Lu want to accept a disciple. Nanyan heard his tone and guessed his idea. She glanced at Zhang Nai, who was expecting, and said lightly, I picked her up casually. If you like her, you can take her. She will take the high school entrance examination this year. After the exam, she will have a 2-month vacation. You can train her and see where she is talented. Sister, can I? Zhang Nai asked nervously with her big eyes flashing. She knew the identity of Grandpa Lu. He is a representative figure in the Chinese art world. He has 3 of the arts of music, chess, calligraphy, and painting. Chess, calligraphy, and painting are all great figures. How do I know if you can do it? It depends on your own talent. Nanyan looked at her depressed face and smiled, it doesn't matter if you can't do it. Sister will find other interests for you. Grandpa Lu said quickly, little girl, I am not sure about other talents yet, but you are definitely talented in chess. Are you willing to learn from me? Zhang Nai nodded vigorously, yes, I am willing. Grandpa Lu stroked his beard happily. Then, he put down his hand and asked tentatively, Yan Yan, how about you learn from Grandpa? Grandpa knows a lot of things. Whatever you are interested in, Grandpa will teach you. Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss. Author, Junanan. Chapter 268. Speaking of which, Lu Zhengting still looked at Nanyan with a hint of expectation. While Nanyan was refining medicine upstairs, he asked Mr. N about her downstairs. Only then did he know that Nanyan had not only become a perfect student and won the first place in the national physics competition, but would also represent Hyde High School in the national computer competition soon. Mr. N did not tell him that Nan Yan knew medicine. But even these were enough to shock him. Nan Yan, this granddaughter, is really excellent. Nan Yan looked up, and after a moment of surprise, she shook her head lightly, no. The surprise was that she felt that Mr. Lu did not have a good impression of her before, and disliked her bad attitude towards the couple of the N family. It's only been a few hours, and she is actually trying to please her? Mr. Lu was stunned. Speaking of which, this is the first time he has been rejected. In the past, he was the one who rejected others, and others were too busy trying to curry favor with him. After suppressing the strange feeling in his heart, he stroked his beard and said kindly, "Yan Yan, don't refuse so quickly. Grandpa knows you are busy. I don't want you to come and study with Grandpa now. You can wait until you graduate from high school." "Grandpa, my interests are not those." Nan Yan didn't want to waste time on such unnecessary things, so he directly stated his intention. "I want to join scientific research in the future, and I really don't have time." "You should train Xiao Nai." Yan Yan wants to do scientific research. This is a good ambition. Grandpa Lu's eyes lit up. Doing scientific research is indeed more useful than doing art, and it can serve the country. Grandpa supports you. Thank you. Nan Yan nodded, picked up the chopsticks, and went to pick up the dishes to eat. Mr. N chuckled, "Old man Lu, is our Yan Yan very good?" "Yes, very good." Mr. Lu felt that it was not enough to just say it, and nodded twice. "I didn't expect that our family would have a scientist in the future, which would bring honor to the family." The N family started out as a businessman, and the Lu family was an artistic family. Although in the eyes of outsiders, they are both very good families. But some professions are always admired. For example, soldiers, for example, scientists. Nan Yan chose to take this path, which is indeed better than studying art. The two old men praised Nan Yan on the side, and Nan Yan finished her meal calmly and went back upstairs. When she returned upstairs, her medicine was almost ready. When she put the refined pills into the bottle, the mobile phone on the table lit up. The caller ID was Qin Lu. She raised her eyes and took a look. Not only did she not slowly put all the medicine in, but she also sealed it before picking up the phone to answer it. "Brother. Are you busy?" A warm voice with a faint smile. "I'm done." She casually put the medicine bottle into her school bag and went back to the bedroom. The medicine was for Luo Xiajun, the wife of the Dean of Studies. She had promised to prescribe medicine for her before, but it was delayed by various things and was only done today. Qin Lu asked again, "Have you eaten?" "Yeah." Nan Yan frowned, "Brother, you are so boring chatting like this." Obviously, there was nothing to ask her, and asking these meaningless things on the phone was a pure waste of time. After the voice fell, a low and hoarse chuckle came from the man's ears, and then the frivolous words sounded again, "Yan Yan, do you think brother has no interest?" "No." Nan Yan's fingertips suddenly tensed. This man is so annoying when he flirts with people. "By the way, brother, I'm going to country M in 3 days. She was very wise and quickly changed the subject. "Can't go on, or she might hear something that makes her heart beat faster on the phone." Qin Lu's eyes were full of understanding. 3 days later, country M. Qin Ye just called him and told him that the time and place he and the person who wanted Flint and Blood Ganoderma on the Dark Domain Network agreed to meet was also 3 days later, country M. Is it a coincidence? A suspicious thought popped up uncontrollably. He paused for a moment, without any abnormality, and said in a gentle voice, "Okay, I'll go with you in 3 days. Are you not busy?" "Yeah, I just have time." "Okay." After a few words of rambling, Nan Yan quickly hung up the phone. To prevent him from flirting with her unscrupulously again, This man has more and more bad intentions towards her. Hashtag. The plane ticket was booked in advance. Because she could basically come back in one day, Nan Yan didn't tell Grandpa An. At 3 o'clock in the morning, Nan Yan got up, washed up, changed her clothes, and went downstairs quietly. Qin Lu's car was parked 100 meters away from the old house. And he was waiting for her at the door. When she came out of the gate, Qin Lu held her hand, and the two walked slowly towards the car. His long and slender hands opened the car door, and then his palms protected the door, letting the girl get in the car first. After Qin Lu got in the car, he looked at her sideways. It's 40 minutes to the airport, sleep for a while. Nan Yan shook her head slowly. Sleep on the plane, just woke up, can't sleep now. Okay, then sleep on the plane. They will be on the plane for nearly 6 hours. It's really possible to have a good sleep. He reached out and rubbed her head, fed her a lollipop, and opened the notebook. Nan Yan. This is what he said about not being busy. However, he had long been accustomed to him working on the road, so Nan Yan did not disturb him. She was bored with her free time, so she checked the time and went to harass Bayuki. Nan Yan, have you slept? Bayuki. Bayuki, God, why don't you rest so late? Women don't care much about beauty sleep, health care or anything like that. Going to bed late is the #1 killer of skin. The more beautiful a woman is, the more she cares about her schedule. But why is God different at all? He had received news from Nan Yan several times in the middle of the night, but at 3:30 in the morning, this was the first time. Nan Yan, after resting, get up. Bayuki. God is God. It's not something that mortals can compare to. Nan Yan, give me a few tasks to pass the time if I'm bored. Bayuki, okay. He quickly packaged several new and more difficult tasks to Nan Yan. Then he started to ask every question. God, look, just join, you don't have to come in person, and it won't affect your daily life just like now, just take on a few tasks when you have time, and just don't worry about it when you don't have time. God, for the sake of my sincerity, just agree. Nan Yan, busy, don't disturb me. Bayuki. Fine. Rejected again. Bayuki sighed calmly, touched the hair on his head that seemed to be sparse, and quickly turned off the computer. He couldn't endure it any longer, he was afraid that he would become bald. Wu Yu looked at the car behind him in the rearview mirror, with an ant smile on his face. The young master and Miss Nan each hold a computer, looking quiet and busy. They look like a perfect match. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss. Author, Junanan. Chapter 269. Country M. T City. The plane landed at exactly 3 o'clock in the afternoon local time. After coming out of the airport, Nan Yan sent a message to Qin Ye, telling him that he had arrived at T City Airport. Qin Ye had been waiting for news from her. After seeing it, he sent her a location and asked her to come over. Later, Qin Ye took a screenshot of the message and sent it to Qin Lu. Qin Lu saw the screenshot sent by Qin Ye and looked at the little girl beside him with a dark expression. After knowing the flight ticket Nan Yan booked and the location she was flying to, he had determined that she was the person who contacted Qin Ye on the dark domain network. The kid gave him a scare this time. Well, it's pretty big. There are probably not even 1 or 2 T-1 reagents available in the world. However, she took out 2 at a time. The previous one was found after he discovered that Nan Yan was a fish that loves diving, so he checked it on the dark domain network. It seems that there are more secrets shrouding the little guy. Qin Lu smiled silently and casually grabbed the girl who was walking out. Then he easily brought her in front of her, face to face. He put the phone in front of her, chuckled and asked. Yan, you want fire flint and blood Ganoderma, why don't you tell your brother? Nan Yan glanced at the screenshot on his screen, and then looked up at him. The look in his eyes was a little unclear. She stared straight at him without saying a word. Qin Lu stroked her head gently and asked, "Are you angry?" No, Nan Yan replied with 2 words expressionlessly. She wasn't angry, but she felt an indescribable awkward feeling in her heart. Until now, she had never imagined that Qin Lu had already guessed her purpose of coming here. However, since he knew it was her in advance, he still let her make this trip in vain. Is that a bit much? It really complied with Shen Junking's words, "Dog man. Yan, let me make it clear first that I didn't hide it from you on purpose." Qin Lu lowered his posture, put on his mobile phone, held her hand, and explained in a warm voice, "At first, my brother didn't know that the person who wanted these 2 things was you, and the person who contacted you was my subordinate, who manages these things. So when he asked me if I wanted to sell it, I really didn't know it was you. Later, you brought it up yourself and said you were going to visit M country in a few days, which made me wonder if it was such a coincidence. Later, after we set the time and place for 3 days, I was sure it was you." Nan Yan looked at him with clear black and white eyes and raised her eyebrows. "Then what? Now that you know it, why do you let me make this trip?" Qin Lu said with a smile in his voice, "Well, because my brother has a lot of treasures here, and I want to show them to the children to see if there are any they need. Of course, I also have selfish motives. I want my children to spend more time with my brother. Accompany him." What he was referring to was the 10 hours of traveling back and forth on the plane. Nan Yan felt speechless. Qin Lu looked at her tenderly. The child didn't look angry, but he still seemed a little awkward. A chuckle appeared on his lips. He held her hand and said warmly, "Let's go and eat first. After eating, we'll get something." The restaurant was booked by Qin Ye in advance. He was waiting at the restaurant early. Seeing Qin Lu and Nan Yan entering the restaurant, they hurriedly greeted them. "Master, Miss Nan." After greeting him respectfully, he carefully looked at Nan Yan secretly. It turns out that the woman who can make the young master's iron tree bloom is not a human being. This is definitely a fairy, okay. No wonder Wu Yu always praised Miss Nan in the group for how good and powerful she was. He thought Wu Yu was exaggerating. Only when he saw the real person did he realize that Wu Yu was not exaggerating. Being able to control the young master so well is beyond the reach of ordinary people. "Yan, he is Qin Ye, the person you chatted with on the dark domain network." Qin Lu introduced Nan Yan. "Hello, Miss Nan." Qin Ye quickly greeted her again. Nan Yan nodded slightly, "Hello. Master, Miss Nan, the food has been ordered in advance, will you let them serve it now? Let's go." Qin Lu looked at the little guy's face, resisted the urge to pinch it twice, and said quietly, "Yan didn't eat much on the plane, let's eat more later." Qin Ye was at the dinner table, his eyes widening the whole time. He never imagined that the aloof Master Qin would actually take care of people like this. This is not treating Miss Nan as a girlfriend, this is simply treating her as a daughter and pampering her. Although his young master wanted to be single, he was quite happy for him. However, it's just too cruel. But the thought of him eating dog food was only for a while, and Wu Yu was almost always with the young master. That dog food is definitely worth eating. I can't help but feel a little gloating. Hashtag. After eating, Qin Ye became the driver and drove the 2 of them back to where he lived. The place where he lives is the storage warehouse. Those babies are all placed inside. As soon as he entered the door, Qin Ye pointed to the silver box placed on the desk and said, "The fire flint and blood Ganoderma lucidum have been packed for Miss Nan, and they are in this password box." Look at those two things. Later Qin Lu held Nan Yan's hand and signaled to Qin Ye, open the door. Qin Ye quickly took out the key and went to open the door. The heavy door was slowly opened, and Nan Yan had the illusion of entering a treasure house. The collections that Qin Lu collected were naturally precious and priceless. Treasures in the eyes of ordinary people were not worthy of being placed here. World-class paintings, ceramics, jade carvings by masters. She also saw a diamond the size of a human head in a glass cover. There was also half a warehouse of gold. And guns. Qin Lu let go of Nan Yan's hand, and then patted her on the head. Pick what you want. Take what you like. Nan Yan was not very enthusiastic about these things. Even if any of them were taken outside, they would be treasures that billionaires would fight for. To her, they were just a bunch of useless garbage that took up space. Not as good as an ordinary herb. At least herbs can be used to cure diseases and save lives, but those things are useless. After looking around, Nan Yan turned around and asked, "Are there any other herbs here?" Qin Lu said calmly, "Qin Ye, take out all the herbs." "The herbs are not here, they are in a special storage room." Qin Ye hurried to open the door again, revealing another small room. Inside, there are all kinds of precious and valuable herbs, as well as medicines with various effects. Nan Yan picked up a bottle at random, opened the bottle cap, and smelled it. "Brother, do you have a pharmacist under you?" "Yes, there is indeed one. If you are interested, I will introduce you to him later." Qin Lu smiled, then stared at her. "Little friend, can you tell me where you got the T-1 in your hand?" Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss. Author, Junanan. Chapter 270. This question successfully stunned Nan Yan. Where did the T-1 reagent come from? Of course, she prepared it herself. But at present, the only one who can prepare the T-1 reagent is probably Shishkin's Research Institute. Because she left the complete formula of the T-1 reagent. Although her formula also messed up the order and it was difficult to find the real steps, compared with the T-2 formula, the T-1 formula still has a chance to test the correct steps and prepare it through a large number of experiments. Brother, if you need T-1 reagent in the future, just ask me directly. Nan Yan answered his question from the side. She saw how good Qin Lu was to her. Since he needed it and she could help him, she was happy to help him. Qin Lu's eyes darkened suddenly. He suddenly said to Qin Ye, who was standing beside him in a low voice, "Qin Ye, go out." Qin Ye didn't understand, but since the young master asked him to go out, he just had to do what he said. When Qin Ye left the small room where the medicine was hidden, he also closed the door of the room. Only Qin Lu and Nan Yan were left inside. Qin Lu lowered his head and glared at the well-behaved girl, put his hand on her shoulder, and said in a very serious tone, "Yan Yan, don't say this kind of thing in front of outsiders in the future. T-1 reagent can be regarded as a universal medicine, which can improve the body's defense ability, as well as immune function, and change human genes. It can play a good role in alleviating symptoms for most diseases, and even for people with terminal illnesses, it may prolong life. When it first came out, it caused a sensation in the World Medical Organization. As the number of clinical applications increased, some side effects began to appear. But compared to those side effects, being able to live is the most important thing. However, Nan Yan was very dissatisfied with the fact that the T-1 reagent had such a big side effect. In order to change the side effects, she led the team to work day and night to research the second generation of T-2. However, after the success of the second generation research, Nan Yan was killed by Shishkin before she had time to go to clinical trials. The research results were also monopolized by him alone. Nan Yan looked at him, her clear eyes shining, and she said faintly, "I know all this, but you are not an outsider." If it wasn't him standing in front of her now, She wouldn't say it at all. Qin Lu's kindness to her had subtly made her treat him as her own. What's more, she believed that Qin Lu would not hurt her. The color of Qin Lu's dark eyes suddenly became deeper. He leaned over, his fingers slid from the top of her head, moved to her chin, and then gently lifted it. The thin lips covered her ears, and his voice was hoarse, "Little friend, I am very touched. But, I really want to do something bad, can I?" Nan Yan's scalp was numb by his bewitching tone, and she subconsciously wanted to refuse. But before she could refuse, her eyes went dark, and her lips were suddenly stained with a bit of coolness. The faint mint smell spread from her lips to her lips and teeth. Before she could feel it carefully, the slightly cool touch had already separated. Then, she was embraced in the man's warm arms. So, that was just. The picture was uncontrollably portrayed in her mind, making her face slightly hot. The man's strong heartbeat was in her ears. It could be heard that his heartbeat was slightly faster than usual. Neither of them spoke, and they kept hugging each other. The only quiet thing in the air was the shallow breathing of the two people. After a while, Nan Yan felt the temperature on her face drop, and she stretched out her hand to push him away, and said with a look in her eyes that was a bit difficult to describe, "Don't call me a little friend next time." I don't know if he called her a little friend while kissing her because he liked the sense of taboo. But she didn't like it. She just looked 18 years old, and her real age was about the same as him. It was awkward to hear him calling her a little friend. Qin Lu's eyes were filled with a doting smile. "Then you grow up quickly, and your brother can still be a hooligan with a clear conscience." Unlike now, he felt guilty when he kissed her. He would not stop at a touch and break up at the first touch. "Nan Yan." She rolled her eyes at him coldly and turned to look at the herbs. Qin Lu followed her and watched her quietly. As for what she wanted to take, he would not feel sorry at all. If she wanted it, he would give her the entire treasure house without blinking an eye. As long as she liked it. Hashtag. Coming out of the room where the herbs were stored, Nan Yan held a few rare herbs in her hand. When Qin Ye saw them, he took them consciously, put them together with the flint and blood Ganoderma, and locked the password box again. Lan Yan sat at the table and asked for a piece of paper and pen to write. When the paper was almost full, she put down the pen. After folding the paper in half, she handed it to Qin Lu. "Give it to the alchemist under you. If you have any questions, you can come to me. The research of medicine is to benefit the people. Although T-1 has some side effects, it is indeed a life-saving medicine. In addition, the current formula is improved by her, and the side effects will be smaller." In front of her, Qin Lu lit up the formula of the medicine that countless people would pay a huge price to buy just one with a lighter. Nan Yan frowned slightly. "Why did you burn it? Just remember these things in your mind." Qin Lu's tone was very calm. He let go of the paper only when only a piece of it was left. The flames licked it, and the last bit of paper was burned into powder. It fell to the floor. Nan Yan licked her lips, a little confused. "But, didn't you bring it up before to analyze the formula?" Qin Lu raised his hand and rubbed her head, saying calmly, "It's enough to have you here. Some things can't be leaked." Although he didn't figure out Nan Yan's true identity, he couldn't let her make any mistakes. She said before that she did something that would make her life unstable. Now thinking back, it might be the reason why she gave that T-1 potion to another buyer on the dark domain network. There was a flickering dark light in his eyes, and his mind was turning, but his face was calm. He hugged Nan Yan lightly and whispered, "Don't expose yourself in the future. No matter who her enemy is, as long as he is there, he will definitely protect her." Hashtag. After getting the herbs from Country M, the two did not stay there for long, and boarded the plane to return to Jincheng. It was another 7 hours of flight time. Nan Yan had taken a nap on the plane when she came, and she was not sleepy now. She leaned lazily on the back of the chair, watching the man next to her handle the work. The first-class cabin was very quiet. Nan Yan watched for a while, then got up and went to the bathroom. As soon as she entered the bathroom, she noticed something was wrong behind her. Before she turned around, a cold gun was pressed against her waist. "Miss, you'd better not move or shout.